So, who remembers 2022, the Brock Purdy game against the Miami Dolphins? The Jimmy Garoppolo fractured his foot game against the Miami Dolphins. That game opened up with Trent Sherfield, the ex-49er. He had been with them in 2021, catching a Tua Tagovailoa pass and bolting a good 80 yards into the end zone. It might have been the very first play from scrimmage for the Miami Dolphins. It was a strike of lightning. And I just think about that play back in 2022, before the 49ers took over that game, before Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt, before Brock Purdy came in and started that whole story. I just think about that play and remembering, wow, Mike McDaniel has an absolute machine operating in Miami. I mean, they were playing that speed offense. Didn't they score 70 against Denver that year, his first season in 2022, running up the score? Now we just saw them lose to the Baltimore Ravens on Thursday Night Football, 28-6. The Dolphins fall to 2-7. You do have to wonder how much longer Mike McDaniel is going to be the coach of the Miami Dolphins. And maybe even more pressingly, as the 49ers, you wonder, are the Dolphins going to be in fire sale mode? Because they do have some pass rushers on that football team. Jalen Phillips played in that game in 2022, UCLA product. He actually hit Brock Purdy on that first third down that Brock faced, the first third and long. But Brock found George Kittle on the zero blitz right over the middle. That's what Phillips is famous for in 49ers circles. Perhaps he could be available for a trade. Bradley Chubb, that's a big ticket edge rusher, has had a lower body serious injury that he's coming back from. May not be the same player as before, but still has years under his contract. Maybe he's available. If the 49ers are in rental mode, which I don't think they are, based on everything that we've gathered, I think they want somebody with team control beyond this season. Matthew Judon, 33 years old, is on this Miami Dolphins team. But they're not good. They're struggling, and if Mike McDaniel doesn't make it through the end of this season, I do wonder if he does come back to the 49ers in some sort of consulting role. It's entirely possible. Last year when Robert Saleh was fired by the New York Jets, he resurfaced with his old roommate. Like, the roommate is a graduate assistant of one of the directional Michigan schools. I want to say Central Michigan under Brian Kelly, who just got fired by LSU. But Robert Saleh and Matt LaFleur were roommates over there in Central Michigan. And then after Saleh got fired by the Jets, LaFleur helped pick him up and brought him into Green Bay to be actually an offensive consultant, not even a defensive consultant. And Robert says, that was more about Matt LaFleur just reaching out for my own mental health, helping me out when I was down, giving me something to do, because these football coaches they're so hooked on just grinding tape, coaching, taking up almost all of their day. The guys have couches in their offices so that they could continue working as efficiently as possible. Jim Harbaugh, we saw his brother coach tonight. Back when Jim Harbaugh was at Stanford, he had a bathroom installed right near his office to reduce drag. Or was that with the 49ers? It was at one of his coaching stops. I forgot where. But Jim Harbaugh wanted a bathroom installed closer to his office than the existing one. And I'm sure the existing one wasn't that far away. But he just wanted to do more coaching. He wanted the bathroom to be closer. He wanted the shower to be right there. Anyway, these guys are so hooked on working that if one of them ever is let go, there's a big void to fill. And the Packers helped Robert Saleh fill that void. I don't know what the future of Mike McDaniel is going to be. I don't know what Stephen Ross is thinking. The Dolphins are 2-7. I'm curious for a number of different reasons. Obviously, one of them being the potential trades that teams might be able to make with the Miami Dolphins, because you have to chalk this up as a loss of a season, and you have to say that they're potential sellers. And then if Mike McDaniel does become available, I will wonder if he heads over to the 49ers, because he's got connections there. He's got connections in Houston. It could be, what does he do for the rest of this season if he becomes available? Last year, Robert Saleh went to the Packers just to detox, and then he went back to the 49ers. I think what you do for the rest of this season and what you would do in 2026 are two entirely different things, and it's just something to keep an eye out for, because that situation in Miami has turned south. In 2022, that was the year that the Dolphins were just electric offensively to begin, but then it started crashing out for them toward the end of the season. That was the year of the big Sherfield touchdown against the 49ers. I could go to the Dolphins' schedules and results in 2022. That was McDaniel's first year after being hired away from the 49ers, where he was the offensive coordinator, one of the few to ever have that offensive coordinator role under Kyle Shanahan. Clay Kubiak has it now. Only McDaniel and Kubiak have formerly been titled offensive coordinator under Shanahan. McDaniel got it in 2021, even though he didn't call plays. It was just a sign of respect for the amount of responsibility that he did have. And the Dolphins opened that season in 2022 up 3-0. I don't think that the big 70-point outburst came until 2023, because in 2022 they're 3-0. They beat the Buffalo Bills. They ended up opening up 8-3 because they went on a 5-game win streak when they came to San Francisco on December 4th. And that is when a lot of trajectories changed, not only for the Dolphins, but also for the 49ers. I look back on that December 4th of 2022 as really a monumental date for both of these teams, the 49ers and the Dolphins. And I'm going to go back to the box score of that game. We're going to see exactly how long that Trent Sherfield touchdown was. The 49ers at the time were 7-4. The Dolphins entered that game at 8-3. The very first play from scrimmage was a 75-yard touchdown pass from Tua Tagovailoa to Trent Sherfield, the ex-49er. And at that point, it was like, oh my goodness, what have the 49ers gotten themselves into? Are they going to be able to catch up to this lightning-fast Mike McDaniel Miami offense? Next drive for the 49ers went down the field, but Jimmy Garoppolo broke his foot. Robbie Gould kicked the field goal, but Jimmy Garoppolo got carted off. It was 7-3. And everybody's saying, well, Trey Lance is done for the year. Jimmy Garoppolo is done for the year. Here comes this kid, Brock Purdy. Maybe the 49ers can find a way to squeeze their way to a winning record, but their Super Bowl dreams, their legitimate playoff dreams are finished. That was the thought at the time. I still remember that. And they definitely won't be able to beat this Miami Dolphins explosive unit from Mike McDaniel. But what ended up happening, and this is the photo. This is the Jimmy Garoppolo photo. I have to show this from the WhatsApp here. Mike just shared this with me. That's Garoppolo and the foot fracture happening against the Dolphins on that December 4th day in 2022. Purdy ended up coming in and he far exceeded any expectations that anybody would have of pick number 262. Like I said, Jalen Phillips, who might be on the trade block now for the Dolphins, thought that he had him on a 3rd down zero blitz. I mean, the Dolphins just threw all kinds of zero blitzes at Brock Purdy, assuming that he would fold as a rookie who hadn't seen those at the NFL level before, but he didn't. And the 49ers ended up winning 33-17. I think that there was a Dre Greenlaw pick 6 at the very end of that game. That's still vividly in my mind. And it set up the Tom Brady return to Levi's Stadium, return to the Bay Area the next week. And that was Brock's first start. And he won that one. He dominated in that one. He broke his rib. And then on a short week, he went to Seattle and he led the 49ers to clinching the division with a broken rib. So that December 4th game against Miami was the inflection point that led to this current era of 49ers football under Brock Purdy. Look, here's a picture of Brock in that game against the Dolphins after he came in. Crazy, crazy memories. And for the Dolphins, that sent that season from an AFC championship at the very least trajectory. They were 8-3. They ended up sliding. They lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games in a row. The 49ers literally broke the Dolphins in 2022, and they ended up losing to the Buffalo Bills in the postseason in the wild card round, a 34-31 loss. When you move to 2023, the Dolphins did rebound. That's when the 70-point game happened. They beat the Broncos 70-20. That was week 3, and they were 3-0. But again, even though that was probably the best team that Mike McDaniel fielded with the Miami Dolphins, they did not leave the first round of the playoffs. I remember that was the year that they played the Chiefs in the extreme cold, and they lost 26-7. Did not help them shed the stigma that was a soft team. In 2024, McDaniel and the Dolphins beat the 49ers, but that was a shell of the 49ers team we had seen in the past with all the injuries. And the Dolphins finished that year 8-9. They did not make the playoffs. And now they are 2-7. So all of this can be traced back to December 4th of 2022. Now, Mike McDaniel, he's a very, very good offensive designer. He was the run game coordinator for the 49ers. He was an impressive architect of the run game. We know how well things were operating and firing in the run game back when Mike McDaniel was there. But this is somebody who's been with Kyle Shanahan for a very, very long stretch of Kyle's career, so he understands exactly what Kyle is seeing, and I think Kyle understands exactly what he is seeing. This goes back to the Washington days, 2011. That's when Kyle was the offensive coordinator of Washington, Mike McDaniel right underneath him. In 2014, Kyle moved over to the Cleveland Browns, where he's the offensive coordinator. Mike McDaniel was his wide receivers coach. In 2015 and 2016, when McDaniel went to the Falcons, when Shanahan went to the Falcons, McDaniel followed him there. He was an offensive assistant. And then in 2017, Shanahan took the head coaching job of the 49ers, and he hired Mike McDaniel to be his run game coordinator. And it was the run game that took the league by storm once the 49ers broke out in 2019. And the success that they had on the ground, especially with the outside zone and you heard George Kittle talking about it when I asked him about gap scheme versus zone scheme. 2019, Mike McDaniel was able to architect an offense that took advantage of the 49ers' extreme speed to the edges. So Raheem Mostert and Tevin Coleman just absolutely owned NFL defenses down the stretch run of that season. They opened with power inside the hashes, gap scheme stuff to begin the year. And then as they got some of these really speedy backs healthy and seeing the system, and as defenses just weren't ready for it toward the end of the season, McDaniel was able to scheme up stuff that hit them to the edges. And then you remember the NFC Championship game against the Packers. That's one of the great memories of this 49ers era. He maintained a good running game even in 2020 with all the 49ers injuries, and that meant that by 2021, the 49ers promoted Mike to offensive coordinator. We all know what happened in 2021. Hell of a surge for the 49ers with Deebo Samuel, Jimmy Garoppolo. It was an offense-driven team that almost made it to the Super Bowl, despite the fact their defense was ranked in the 20s that year. I think the Jaquiski Tart drop in the NFC Championship game doomed the 49ers, but it was impressive enough for Miami to hire Mike McDaniel as their head coach. And now we'll find out what happens next to McDaniel after the downturn. Lamar Jackson is back. 18-23, 204 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions against that Miami defense. The big concern, though, is that the Ravens do not have a good defense. I want to see where they're ranked because it wasn't good the last time I checked. And the Dolphins only managed 6 points. And Mike McDaniel's an offensive coach, and managing only 6 points against the Ravens shows you that the Tua-Mike McDaniel partnership right now is not working. Let's look at the defensive rankings. Because Baltimore was near last the last time I looked a couple weeks ago. Baltimore's number 30 in the league. So if you're the Dolphins, you were at home with, and Lamar Jackson is up on the podium now. He's at the table with the Thursday Night Football crew. He's getting the wrestling belt. I'm just taking a peek at this out of the corner of my eye. But you were at home as the Dolphins. You had a chance to, in prime time, deliver some kind of salvaging statement. Yes, Lamar Jackson was on the other side, but also on the other side was the number 30 defense in all football. A Ravens team that's just been run over defensively this year, and you put up 6 points as the Dolphins. I mean, it's just a rough look and just a culmination of a lot that's gone downhill for this football team ever since that December 4th day in 2022. All right, I'm going to answer some questions. We're back in the casual setup today, and then as soon as I answer some questions, I'm going to get going. Mike says that the Ravens' young guys are playing better. That's what you'd like to see. Teddy Buchanan, yeah, San Francisco native. Teddy Buchanan, nice. Good for him. Well, I mean, we can honor Teddy Buchanan by showing people the San Francisco skyline in it a little bit. He went to St. Ignatius High School in the city, Cal product. He is the AFC's Rookie of the Month, Teddy Buchanan, on that Ravens defense. The Ravens had to run a defensive reset. It didn't go all that smoothly to begin this season. But the season is, I wouldn't say young anymore, but the season isn't old yet. And Baltimore's going to have a chance to dig themselves out of a 3-5 hole. I mean, speaking of Mike McDaniel, the last year that he was with the 49ers before he got hired away by the Dolphins, he helped coach the 49ers out of a 3-5 hole with a poor defense and a really good offense. So maybe Baltimore can turn this around. I would never count a team with Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh in charge. Andrews, right, the tight end. They got some good players. And, of course, Derrick Henry. But I definitely would count the Miami Dolphins out because that is not a team that has shown us any real mettle whatsoever over the course of the past several seasons. They've gotten off the hot starts, but they've wilted. I guess it's the opposite of wilted. They've frozen as the temperatures have dropped over the course of these seasons. Teddy Buchanan, that's perfect. We got San Francisco here behind us. Whenever I do these casual shows here from the apartment, we'll finish it up by turning off the lights and taking a look at the city to see what it looks like tonight. And every once in a while, we can do something fun from the rooftop as well. But I'm ready to answer some of your questions here just for a couple minutes. Mike, did you see any good ones? If you see any good ones, Mike, can you send them my way? I guess I could always go to the actual page. Yeah, here we go. Ian Sharp says the 49ers lost Drew Moss and Gibson. Yeah, Drew Moss was picked up, signed to the 53-man roster elsewhere after the 49ers waived him, claimed off of waivers. 49ers didn't have room for him anymore on their 53-man. And they also did lose Travis Gibson, who signed elsewhere because the 49ers did not want to promote him from their practice squad after he ran out of elevations. Is Jalen Phillips a trade possibility, and what do I think the cost is? Well, first of all, Jalen Phillips, I think, is a player that is as complete of an edge rusher as might be available, but he's only under contract through the end of this season. He does have a little bit of an injury history, too. He's on his fifth-year option at $13.2 million. If the Dolphins don't want to re-sign him, and I think they would have, I think because of the injury history, that is the reason they haven't re-signed him. But if they don't want to get on that, if there's going to be a regime change here, that could be a player that is shipped away for draft capital. The problem is that the 49ers have talked about, and John Lynch said it again today on KNBR, wanting somebody that would contribute beyond 2025. And Phillips' contract expires with 2025. Bradley Chubb is somebody who's an older veteran, also has gone through an injury history, but at least he's under contract past this season. Matthew Judon, the older edge rusher on Miami, same story as Jalen Phillips, only under contract for 2025. So it really depends on where the 49ers' priorities lie. And I have a whole video about this coming out tomorrow. I think that their willingness to go for a rental has decreased this week because of the healing nature of the offensive line. their defensive line. Yetur Gross-Matos is back. The 3 guys who got hurt against Houston are all back at practice. They added a trade in Keon White. They added Cleveland Farrell. The defensive line for the 49ers now looks a whole lot better than it did on Sunday. So it appears increasingly unlikely that the 49ers will go out and get a rental. I think that they could still trade for somebody like a Keon White, similar contractual situation that can help him beyond 2025 if they can see some utility in that. But I really am having a hard time at this point seeing pure rental status for San Francisco on this trade market. Post your questions. Let's get a couple more in here. I should have put the mic sock on here so it doesn't clip out here. Let me get the mic sock on this. Toward the end of these videos, we go for the better audio. I can just hold this up here. What about Quinnen Williams, defensive tackle? Sounds expensive to me. Bengals 2024 third-round pick, a defensive tackle, McKinley Jackson, requested a release or a trade. I'm intrigued just because of the fact that it doesn't seem like anybody on that Bengals defensive line wants to play for the Bengals. Like Trey Hendrickson doesn't seem to want to be there. McKinley Jackson doesn't seem to want to be there. The Bengals seem to be deluding themselves into thinking that they're contenders when it doesn't really seem that they are. I'm beyond intrigued to see what happens with the Cincinnati Bengals this weekend and then before November 4th, before that Tuesday trade deadline. No, there are not going to be trades for offensive linemen. I get asked that a lot, but guys, offensive linemen typically aren't traded. The reason you see so many more D-line trades than O-line trades is because D-linemen are in surplus in general across the league, and offensive linemen are not in surplus. There's a scarcity of offensive linemen across the league. So it's one of those situations where fans can wish for players at certain positions, but you cannot ignore market realities. So, it's when I look at the trade market, I always think that defensive linemen are the easiest position to acquire, not just because of the fact that there's a surplus of them across the league, but also because of the fact that they're most plug and play. I think you got plug and play capability with the defensive line in a way that you don't have at almost any other position, which is, and it just so happens that defensive line is where the 49ers are probably most deficient right now after all the injuries, although it has gotten a lot better this season. Dolphins linebacker Jordan Brooks on their loss tonight to the Ravens. This is the sign of a broken locker room. Listen to this quote. "I felt like we played well defensively." So he's saying it's not our fault. He said, "Turnovers kill you." I've got to update my version of WhatsApp, Mike. I can't see it right now. But he was basically blaming the loss on the Miami Dolphins offense. Mike, if you can text me that quote so I can get it on iMessage instead of WhatsApp, I'll be able to see it. My WhatsApp just quit on me. It wants some kind of software update. But the fact that you've got a player basically throwing the other side of the football under the bus after the game, that is not a good thing for the Miami Dolphins. I felt like we played well defensively. Turnovers, that kills you. not capitalizing, not scoring when we could, giving them the ball back. Yep. He is saying that this is the offense's fault. I'm back on WhatsApp, Mike. You're good. You're good on WhatsApp. I ran the update. We're fine. Is somebody seriously complaining about the flipped camera? You know that's like a thing on YouTube? Like if you go from your phone, if you go live from your phone, it flips. I do so many formal lives from a studio. I do lives from cool places. Am I not ever allowed to just chill, put on the phone, and have a video that's reversed with the background? Take it up with YouTube. Don't take it up with me. Everybody acting like a technical expert. There is no way to turn off the mirror camera. Your all caps in the comment section will not help you get what you want. Everybody's saying, bring Mike McDaniel back home. Well, we'll have to see what happens with Mike McDaniel, but it wasn't a good look for the Dolphins when all those fans were leaving early today as they fall to 2-7. I'm just enjoying sitting here doing a casual video. I can't believe there's people talking about technical issues. You can see my face. You can hear me talk. I think the audio quality is good. And I'm about to show you a really cool view to wrap this one up. I think that's good enough. Is Yetur Gross-Matos good to go this weekend? Well, he was good at practice today. Hopefully that stays good for the 49ers over the course of the next couple days. All right, we're going to go check out the view. Jack, can you turn off the light, please? My buddy Jack is here. This is going to be our grand reveal. We do this at the end of every show. Jack just slid over there. All right, Jack turned off the light. Now I'm going to turn off this one. Oh, can you turn off the TV too? They're talking about Brock Purdy on TV, but we've got the TV off, and now we've got this light off. If I can get it off. No, I can't. 1 second. I got it. It is off. Jack is laughing. And now we're going to close the computer. And now we're going to go this way. You guys get to see the silhouette of Jack. There he is. All right, this is how we ended the show last night, Jack. I don't know if you watched, but I think I cleaned up the camera a little bit. It's not as clear as it was last night. These are the ending credits. There you go. Now it's not reversed anymore because we are using the back camera of the iPhone. Everybody have a good night. We'll talk a little bit more tomorrow. I'm actually flying to New York tomorrow, but we got a video ready for you, so make sure that you are subscribed and have that notification bell on. Look, you even get a cable car climbing up the hill. Quintessential, classic. We'll talk to you guys soon.